we talked about how there's different expectations from students in the first year. We kind of agreed that the majority of students in the first year often see it as an easy year, that they can kind of orientate themselves and initiate themselves, partly based on the fact that they're told you just have to pass this year. Yeah. But you do get some, and we talked about mature students as well, who see it as they want to be challenged, they're expecting to be challenged, and that this is a whole new world and experience. Year 2, more realistic. Year 3, kind of, they know that they're going to have to kind of get engaged with hard work and stress.
I think there's a sense of, certainly in the first years at the moment, of their expectations is that we will lead them to the right answer being very particular, and that actually staff expectations are that they should begin to recognise that there isn't perhaps a right answer, there are multiple ways of addressing issues, problems, questions.
The student perception or expectation is very much based on how do I get an A, or how do I kind of make that transition successfully as possible into year 2.
That seemed to be just a theme right the way through from year 1. How do I get an A? How do I get a first? How do I get a first?
I thought there wasn't as much focus on hitting the ground running as I maybe expected. I kind of expected it to be more hands-on.
I thought this degree was going to help me to develop the skills like needed, because I didn't have that.
Obviously there's a big step between A-levels and university. I anticipated having to do more academic writing, which we did.
From my own experience, like at A-level, a subject I did like essays constantly, but when I got here, I was never really explained the difference that much of what is needed at A-level than it is now. So,
yeah, I can expand there. I thought my essay writing was pretty tip-top, it was alright, but when you sort of got it and you had your first essay sort of picked apart, and you're like, oh, they look for something else other than what you wrote at A-level was alright, but when you get to university, what they're looking for is completely different.
Knowing when your deadlines were and handing things in much more often than like different being at school.
We were thinking along the lines of reading, whereas you were saying writing. We were thinking about first years tend to sort of think that they are going to be provided with the books, the chapters, exactly what do I need to read, and then they'll get on with it. And the difference between that and staff expectations is that they can, give them a reading list and they will get on with it. So we talked about that in terms of expectations.
In first year there was nothing that we were told to really read, although we did have a reading list provided, but if you didn't do it you could get away with it. There was no kind of way of finding out who was doing the reading and who wasn't doing the reading. So I think there needs to be a way of finding out who is doing the reading, whether it's have to provide notes for a lecture and then be taken in and account for 10% of your notes. It was implied rather than enforced. Perhaps produce 4 sets of notes for key lectures throughout the year. Some people didn't put the work in, so struggled in years 2 and 3. It would help skills of researching, etc.
I think we gained a lot of stuff to do with reading. They gave us a lot more. I think Jo gave us a couple of books to read, and the way she went through it every week. And I think that it's kind of forced you to get the book. What she mentioned, because she was asking you questions about it. So even though you might have thought, oh God, I've got to read it, and you maybe didn't want to, it did make you go get a book out and understand what you were reading and reflect from it. When she was asking you questions, you had to understand what you were reading, sort of thing. I think that helped.
The work is quite different in the second year. It really ups a good few notches. They do get involved in more complicated and challenging briefs.
I think second year is a year that students start to separate into strong students and weak students. And then they start to realize that, and then possibly strong students are very excited for the new territory they can explore. Well, the weak students start to thinking, well, is this what I want?
Some of the courses do focus on a year out, a placement year, and that year 2 is an opportunity for them to identify where their strengths are, where their ambitions might lay, and to support them in finding, routes that they can explore that. And it also, I think the assessment from their employer also feeds back and gives them a lot of confidence, I think. And some experiences are good and some are not so good. But I think it's important that they understand it's okay if it didn't work out, just as if a project, because they've been trying to break boundaries, isn't maybe an A grade, it's not unsuccessful, and it's rewarding in other ways, so that they're not marks driven necessarily.
I do hope that the skills that I've acquired over the first 2 years are going to be enough to get me through university, but I do anticipate kind of more hands-on help in my third year.
I do think I expected more like help with IT side in second year. I think it kind of just stopped after first year a bit.
And we have an idea that came up which we all really liked, which was something that we thought would probably be embedded in the first year, probably as a kind of introductory thing, induction session, which was around writing job descriptions, getting students to write a job description for what their role as a student is, a person spec, and then also for what the lecturer's role is. And as we talked about that, we thought that was actually quite a good way of then talking further about what's expected, what's what's going to happen, and talking about some of the using some of the jargon of higher education to help students to understand their role and the support they'd get. And we thought that, because it's such a wonderful idea, could be revisited in the second year and reviewed, and possibly beyond that as well. Other ideas that we've used amongst the group was a second year conference, a one-day conference at the beginning of the second year, to sort of get students thinking about their skills, and that could be targeted to just certain groups of students depending on what you're trying to work with and work on.